So I remember giving him an index card the first time and writing 3 questions on it. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to keep doing? And I just said, hey, bud, whenever you get a chance, I'd like for you to fill these out. You can take them up to your bedroom, and just bring them down whenever. That's today, tomorrow.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the host of the Good Stuff Podcast, Kevin Bille. The Good Stuff Podcast provides an in-depth conversation on leadership, culture, team, vision, and more through various personalities from the sport and business worlds. Kevin also spent 16 years as a high school basketball coach and athletic director. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Matt, what's up, man?
What's up, Coach? How are you?
Great, man. How are you doing?
Do you mind if I call you Coach? Because once a coach, always a coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, I miss being called it, but yeah, it's good. No, I'm actually. It's funny. The one guy I'm at, where I'm at now, doing these one-on-ones. This place, the one guy always calls me Coach. So yeah,
nice.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's all good. How are you doing today?
Oh, living the dream. Just got done a little second period basketball at my school with my players, and then ran home to get to talk with you. First, thank you so much for giving up your time to come on here and talk with me. This is going to be great.
Oh man, I'm really appreciative. I'm looking forward to it. So I'm thankful that you reached out, and I listened to your Coach Drew one and saw some of your other guests. So yeah, I was pumped when I had a chance to have him on, and gosh, what an experience to play for him, huh?
Yeah, he's the real deal. Kind of a lot of people give him some, I don't know, they've kind of been critical over the years for maybe him not being genuine, or this can't be really who he is. But man, you talk to him long enough, he's high energy, he's authentic, and he is who he is.
Yeah. The one guy that I knew a little, Matt Driscoll, was connected. I know Shyatt really well. So knowing him, and Shyatt went to college at Worcester, and so that's about 30 minutes from where I'm at. My wife actually went to college at Worcester.
Nice.
So yeah, I got to know Shy really well when I was at Notre Dame College, and when he had first got to Florida. So when they would come up to Akron, I lived like 10 minutes from the biggest AAU place, because LeBron was in Akron.
Yeah.
And then he was like, hey, can you drive Billy around? Like, do you mind? I'm like, sign me up. So I got to know those guys really well. And I think at that time, that might have been when Driscoll, was he at Baylor when you were?
Yeah. So he was a part of that first staff that Coach Drew brought on, and talk about high energy there. It's incredible. And that's some great moments with him. But I'm excited for this because, one, I stumbled upon you on Twitter, and it was, I think it was you had posted something that Gannon Baker said, and I'm a huge Gannon Baker fan. And so I started, anytime that's what I love. The good side of social media is that you find people that you might not have ever really run across or have any connection with, but then you see something that they post, and then I start just to look more into what you do. And then, to me, you're just so interesting because you do this, you talk with people, and you get to find out what makes the best in a lot of ways. But then you're also a basketball coach, a former basketball coach. So it's like, it's perfect for the kind of people that I love to get to talk to. So again, excited about it. I've been listening to guys like Tim Ferriss a little bit over the years. And one of my favorite things to hear from them is about their daily habits and what successful people do each day, because we all have the same 24 hours in the day. So my question is, what daily habits set you up for success?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so ironic that I just went and listened to the Big Ten commissioner speak last week. And he said that as well, like 1440, like we all have the same 1440, right? And you're going to think I'm a little crazy, but Atomic Habits is right up there. That's like a top 3 book for me. So I have a habit tracker, and I literally have about 10 to 15 that I'm trying to get every day. They're not like massive ones, but I just consider, like, if you were to say, like, Kevin, how do you define success today? I'm just trying to win my day.
Yeah.
So, Matt, these are built within my day to know that I can be successful each day. And so, literally, like, I start the second the alarm goes off, I'm right into gratitude. Like, I'm getting my mind right into gratitude. Like, I always used to think of one thing. And then I had a guy tell me, it's like, man, we were talking one day. He's like, every morning I do 10 things I'm grateful for. And I thought, oh man, I'm competitive. So I'm like, I gotta get down with that.
I gotta do more than one.
Yeah. But honestly, it's amazing how, like, whether it's the pillow or the warm blanket during winter, like you'd be amazed at how many things that you can be grateful for in your life. And I just love how it gets your mind started that way. Of course, for me and just my faith, Matt, I go right to quiet time. A lot of Psalms and Proverbs in the morning, just two devotionals that I like to read. That helps me. I like to get uncomfortable. If I can control being uncomfortable right away, because once the kids get up, I don't control it anymore. So a cold shower for me is like a must. Like I've gotta have it. I can't live without it.
Man.
And then there's just things throughout the course of the day. Journaling is a part of my life. That I could probably be a little bit more consistent with. And then, like, I'm on 100 ounces of water guy a day. I'm nonstop with that. I'm actually probably 4 or 5 times a week. I'm a big power nap guy. I've been that way since I played, just 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, I do like those. I don't miss running. I don't want to run anymore from all the running. So a good walk for me is good, in general. And then I love to read. So that's kind of a atomic habits thing, right? If I can just read 20 minutes every day, I'm not worried about reading X amount of books, but if I can just read so many minutes a day. And then honestly, like, it might not be a daily one, but one I want to inject in here, because it's probably depending on the season I'm in or the week I'm in. I'm trying to connect, and I'd count this conversation with you as a connection. I need that. I'm a connector. So I'm trying to connect like a minimum of 3 times a week. That really fills me up. And the more I'm able to do that, I get smarter. I'm going to get a lot smarter spending time with you today. And so if I can do that with people, that really helps me. So those are more than a couple, but that's kind of how I go about it, if that makes sense.
That's a good list. What time are you waking up in the morning?
Good question. Anymore, I cannot sleep in, and so it's probably anywhere in between that 5 to 6, depending on the week. But I would say during the week, we're up around 5:30. I think that's a key point, though, to make, though. I think one thing that I found, everybody's so big on starting the day off right. And in order to start the day off right, I think you have to finish your night well. And I tend to struggle with that at times. So that's like one of my daily habits that I forgot to mention. Like last 30 and first 30 of my day, I'm not touching that phone. That's something that, other than that alarm, and then of course my Bible app, those are my exceptions. But I think that's a big part of starting your morning off right, is finishing the night before well.
Yeah, no doubt, because so many people have, and that first hour, the golden hour of your day. Like I've had so many great plans for that time, but if I am staying, NBA playoffs, that when you and I are having this talk right now, NBA playoffs are just starting out. So there's just so many great games on it. I want to stay up and watch those. But if I don't manage that time well, I'm going to be less likely. I'm blown away. I love your ideas of gratitude coming out. Do you journal those, or they're just things that are popping in your head?
Yeah, I think the gratitude part for me, I'm in such a routine now that they're just in my head.
Yeah.
I like 2 ways of journaling. I like literally like a 5-minute brain dump. I do that when I'm really stressed, where it's like you set the timer 5 minutes and you just go. So like, I could be 3 minutes in and talking about the Golden State offense, but it's anything and everything just to get it out. And then I'm really good when I have some prompts, and they're like 3 or 4 guided questions. So I'll follow that at times too. So I think it just kind of depends on where I'm at and just really paying attention. So I like to, as I transitioned in, which we'll get to some of this coaching with business, I was really paying attention to patterns, like what provides me energy, what takes away energy. And I'm just trying to feed that and be aware of that, because I think self-awareness is such a huge thing as a leader. And before we get to situational awareness, we got to understand self more than anything else. And so that's just kind of how I go about it.
I think, yeah, you're right on the money with so many people have these desires that they want to connect more. They want to have a better routine where they, they even just something like you said, what I thought was brilliant was just read 20 minutes a day. I'm not necessarily worried about how many books or so that I'm reading a month, but it's people when they worry about how many books they're reading or the fact that they didn't, they just scrap it, or they don't really look back at what parts of my day am I missing that could actually enable me to finish that goal. I mean, really, it's process, right?
Yeah,
over product. Yeah. And I think you've nailed that with your daily habits.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just like, if you want to run a marathon, that's what James Clear will say in that big book. Just run 1 mile a day, and if you can do that incrementally over time, I think it's just the. I don't know about you when you've done this podcast. I think doing 80 episodes now, that's one thing that sticks out to me, Matt, is these people just have the daily discipline just to continue to master the mundane and do it day in and day out. It was the 15 minutes of ball handling that we had to do, or the 100 free throws a day, or, whatever it might do. But, does it get boring? Yeah, it gets boring, but I mean, I watch these workouts like you do and probably everybody else. Steph Curry, he's not doing anything different than one of your guys.
Yep.
It's just the ability to do it over and over again and find ways to master that. So I think that's the key.
Yeah, that definitely is the common thread. I feel like I'm way less in my interviews and than you are, but I do find that with highly successful people, I think we're always leaning in or wanting, and even like in fitness, as I don't know how old you are, I'm 40, so getting to that number, I just really want to dial in my fitness and my nutrition. And so I'm listening to these people or following these people wanting just the secret, like what don't I know that I need to know? But it's always just be consistent with putting the right things in your mouth. Be consistent with how you're training. There's no magic. It's always the same.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
A cold shower. I've tried it. I really,
huh?
I mean, it just makes me really like, either you're more manly than I am, which that's possibly true, or when you started, let's go back to the beginning when you started. I mean, because I know Mono Watts is the president of PGC. He's one of the greatest human beings I've ever had the pleasure of talking to and being around. And he's all about like cold walks, cold plunges, cold showers, getting yourself uncomfortable, like you said. What was your process in getting that going?
Yeah, I heard about it, read about it, and just, I think there's a lot of positives of it. I guess I just know the day's going to be hard, no matter, I don't know, even when I go back and look at my best days, there's probably some hard in there somewhere. Right. And I think, at the end of the day, I've got a choice on how to respond to things.
Yeah.
And so when adversity hits and being uncomfortable, I'm just going to embrace it. And I just think that's a mentality. And so I think that, that cold shower, it's not easy. I know that every morning when I take my shower and then I decide to turn it to cold, it's a mental thing. And so I'm just embracing myself for that. I think it allows me then to do some breathing exercises to slow down. I don't think it's really any different than shooting a free throw in front of X amount of fans and screaming to where you have to get yourself to. I think there's a lot of similarities in that sense. And, that along with trying to get a one ice bath in like a week is it's good for my, I'm 44 now. And so those things, like, I just need them. I'm breaking down, man. Yeah. I had neck surgery a couple years ago. And so I think anything that you're doing, and hard or whatever it's worth doing, but man, it's not easy when you're going through it. So it's just now become such a habit and a routine that I can't go without.
And I apologize if I'm prying too much into these daily habits that you laid out.
No,
the power nap one, tell me a little bit about how long you said 15 minutes, but are you really actually falling asleep in that time? Or is it more like I'm just going to get quiet. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to try not to think of anything. What are you doing there?
Yeah, I got, I did them when I played in college. And I kind of off and on, but it's funny you mentioned that NBA thing, but it's like planning my week. I'm like, okay, Golden State plays like last night. I'm going to stay up. Like if I go like 2 or 3 nights in a row, man, I need that power nap, and the amount of time in the power nap will change based on that. But yeah, I mean, it's quiet more than anything else, probably, and just shutting everything off. I mean, it's shutting the phone off. Sometimes I'll play an app on there, just to get some soothing music or something, and then just shut my eyes. And yeah, I'm usually setting the alarm for about a 25-minute period of time, because I know it takes me a little bit of time to shut down. It's hard for me. I'm kind of high intense all the time. And then just going through some breathing exercises, where I'm breathing in, holding, breathing out. And then over time, I'm usually knocked out then for that probably 15, 20 minutes of time, which studies show is a good amount. And yeah, it's worked for me. And I think that's the key, Matt, is it's like, I would just tell people to start something. It's kind of like, this podcast, like when I started mine, we didn't have so many things. It was probably brutal for all I know, but like you just do it, and then you just give yourself some grace along the way, because you're not going to get it right initially, and you got to figure out like what's best for you. Like you might have some habits, like the cold shower just might not work for you, but you can't compare yourself to me. And so I think you have to do what's best for you. Read about it, find out what's out there, talk to some others about it. Give yourself a trial and error period, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then kind of see what sticks, and rather trying to do everything or then even nothing at all, just do something and just find out what works for you.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Start small instead of, all right, here's Kevin's list of 10. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to do that list of 10. It's going to be difficult. And then also everybody, that comparison. I mean, like Buzz Williams is somebody to me that he's just incredible. I've been able to listen to him teach and do things a few times. And he shared his calendar with us, his personal calendar.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's amazing.
I'm at a table with other coaches, and I got the feeling I got was we all looked at each other and went, oh, we are just so far beneath.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets more done in a day, and I might get done in a week.
Yeah, but that's comparison is the thief of all joy. Yep, and it's not at all. Sure. It's not at all about what he does, but like you mentioned, it's just making it work for us. But I think that moment of silence that you have, how often do people really do that anymore? Because even the car, I'm putting on music, the radio, when I'm sitting, I teach silent study hall now at Faith, so I'm living the dream. But it's quiet in there, but I have something going. Always I'm listening to something, maybe trying a podcast or something. But I don't think I get quiet very often, and I would imagine, that's really good for you, and maybe some of your best thoughts or kind of revelations come during that time.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's also when pen and paper needs to be close by. Is right before then, or when you wake up. I think that's when it's healthy to get some of that stuff out of there. And I would think the other thing I would add in there too to people, I alluded to it a little bit, but you do got to give yourself some grace throughout this. You might miss a couple of days. I look at our calendar this weekend with the boys. It's just nuts, from 3:30 to 9:30, I'm done, like, it's like I'm Ubering one here and there. I'm coaching baseball. I'm doing this. And so I got to build that into the daily routine. And so sometimes I might miss a couple of these, but I'm not going to beat myself up. And one other thing, other than starting small, like you said, you got to reward yourself every now and again. Like you got to celebrate victories. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like you go a couple, 3 days in a row doing something that you haven't done. Live life a little bit. I'm eating healthy too, but go get that piece of cake or go out to eat with your wife or, go do something with one of your kids. I think rewarding yourself is really key with that too. But I think the silence, going back to that, not to get off track, but I think it's huge. I think we are just on to the next thing. And I'm as guilty as that as the next. So if I can just slow down sometimes and process, and see where I'm at and become more self-aware, because I was on the phone yesterday, Matt, and And I'm telling you right now, I think the number one thing that is, and a lot of people I would think would agree with me here, leaders are not taking care of themselves, Matt. I mean, and that's a big part of it. And it might be food, it might be working out, but like, I don't know how you pour into others when your cup is empty. Man. And so it's not selfish, if you want to be selfless and serve people. It's when they couldn't find Jesus, he was up on the hill for 3 hours by himself, pouring into himself. And so I just think leaders need to take care of themselves more. It's becoming a dangerous cycle right now where they're not taking that time.
That's such a good reminder. I'm the most unhealthiest all year long in season. And we not only are we trying to, as coaches or leaders, trying to model for our players the attributes and the characteristics that we want them to have, we also want them to be healthy and to take care of themselves mentally. And if we're not doing those things, I just don't see how we can lead them in that direction.
Exactly. Yeah, we become very hypocritical.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game.
So you get to talk to a lot of great communicators and leaders, and you've mentioned a few books that you're into already. What's one of the best things that you've borrowed lately?
Yeah, man, I just was, this is great timing. I was just on the phone here recently. Bernie Holiday, he is the mental performance coach for the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you get a chance to check him out, he is absolutely elite. I was texting him the other day, just I'm helping coach my son's 13-year-old baseball team. A couple of these guys nervous and performing, and he talked to me on my podcast about this, and I wish I would have known about it when I played more, but just he sent me some stuff about how being nervous is good. And it literally broke down like all these things that you can feel when you're nervous, from the sweaty palms and pits to the butterflies in your stomach. And then he gave me, he had a reason behind all of these and how it's connected to the brains and the muscles and actually how it's all good, to the point where, you're losing bodily functions. Like I had some teammates that would throw up or go to the bed, but all of it at the end of the day is good. And it might be awkward or weird when you're sitting there in a 30, 45 minutes before the game or a presentation and you're still and you're feeling all those things. It's still going on when you're playing, but at the same time, just the way that he broke it down to me, I just think that's so relatable to a lot of people out there because nerves are just a part of a lot of things that we do. So that would be one. And I'm going to inject another one. I had a phone call the other day too this week that somebody challenged me the other day to spend 15 minutes a day. So we've got 3 boys, 15, 12, and 6, and my wife. So I'm not even going to count the dog in here, although that should probably be a part of this. But they just 15 minutes a day of undivided attention with each one of them. So that's 1 hour of my day with, the 4 most important people in my life. No phone, no TV, no. And I'll tell you what, Matt, like yesterday, and that's honestly, that's tough. Like, I mean, I got home, what was it? I think Tuesday of this week at like 4:30, had to get my one son to the ballpark at 5, was there with his game at 6, didn't get home to 8:30. So I got the one, but I didn't get the other 2 when I got home because they're in bed. But, like yesterday came home and I was intent on, Easton, our 6-year-old, hey, what do you want to do? And I thought I was doing something for him. And in return, it was really good for me, and I don't know that I would have recognized that going into it. So those are 2 just recently that I've got that I think are pretty good.
Man, I want to unpack both those because that what great reminders. The first one, where did you play college basketball? Because you've mentioned that.
Yeah, so we played at Walsh University in North Canton.
Okay.
Ohio, yep.
How many times, growing up being an athlete, did you hear people tell you not to be nervous or that you shouldn't be nervous? Did you hear that quite a bit?
A lot. In fact, I can literally tell you, honestly, there was probably only a handful of times before a game that I wasn't nervous and wondered what was going on. And probably I could relate those to being some of my worst performances.
Wow. Yeah, because that's when you said that, I mean, I've talked with my team about, I don't know where I got it from, and just I think maybe we're lucky along the way if we hear somebody kind of frame nerves that way of it's a good thing. It can make you sharper. Like it can keep you on point and focused. And it also shows that like you care, you're excited, you know, and I agree that lack of nerves should maybe be something that you got to figure out what's going on there. But I always growing up heard nerves are bad. You got to squash those. You should be so confident that you're not nervous.
Yeah. I mean, he goes through a whole thing. I mean, I'll have to screenshot you the some of these things, but like here's like one. I'm just gonna read you real quick. Like dry mouth. I mean, how many times did you have dry mouth when you started a game? Like
every college game I did because I was terrified.
Right. But it's like saliva used to digest food turns off so that the energy used for digestion can be redirected to the brain and muscles where it's needed most during competition. Now, whoever breaks that down to you in that, you know, in that sequence to think that, oh, that's good that I'm not where I'm over here like, oh my gosh, I need a sub. I'm 2 minutes in. I can't, you know, this is what's going on with
my
me.
My gum is stuck up on this.
I've chewed my gum to like just it's dissolved, you know, like, I mean, but yeah, so it's like, once again, I think it's, you know, the butterflies are your ally. It's not your enemy. And it was funny because he talked about, and you probably could find this on YouTube, but Simon Sinek, he gave a little talk on one year of the Olympics. All the people would ask the athletes, they would interview him before and after, and they would say, you know, are you nervous? Were you nervous? And he was so upset by this. But he said the athletes were so trained in their response because of their perspective. They said, no, I was excited. And what a shift, you know, like if I go to do something and say I'm excited versus I'm nervous. I'm excited to play this game. I'm excited to give this talk. I'm excited to, you know, whatever, fill in the blank. And so I think that's just really interesting to how you shift that mindset or approach.
I think we can help players out a lot with 100%. Them feeling okay with those, that rush that they have. And yeah, it shows off how excited you are for what you're about to do. That's good. And tell me again the second thing. What was the second thing?
Yeah, just undivided attention for 15 minutes.
So it just hit me really hard because I don't know the last time. I was trying to think about when was the last time I had without a phone, without something on TV, without anything going on, just a one-on-one talk, and without already having an agenda for what I was going to talk about with my wife, with my boys, even with the dogs.
Yeah, they had the walk, man. I love the dog. He doesn't talk back to me.
That's true. That's just more. Yeah, that's just physical time right there. But what? I mean, even from a point of like, did you have your timer going, or did you let them know what you were doing, or was it just more of like, hey, let's talk, and then it just kind of flowed from there?
Yeah, no, I yesterday, like that one, for example, that I was referring to with my son the other day, it was like, hey, bud, let's, you know, I just want to spend some time with you. What do you want to do? Hey, Dad, let's go downstairs. And, you know, he had something in mind already, you know, and it's like, I had an awareness of how long that was going to be, but I don't know that I would be like, hey, you got 15 minutes. I'm starting a timer. You know, it's just kind of something that I was aware of. And hey, I want to go downstairs with you for a little bit, and let's do whatever you want to do, you know, and I'm not gonna bring the phone, just knowing that on my own. And yeah, it was so nice. It was so nice and freeing and peaceful, and he had a blast, and it was just good for me.
I've asked coaches a lot about how they meet with players because it's an area that I feel like I've never been strong in. And one coach I'm in the DFW area. He said he has 10-minute meetings with his players. And the first 5 minutes is he asks questions. And so he either has some that he already wants to ask, or he just, in the second 5 minutes, the player gets to ask questions. And it's literally, you do stay on time to honor their time, because no player wants to come to a meeting after school not knowing if it's going to be 5 minutes or an hour long. So you know that. But I started doing that last fall. And it was incredible. The first time we did it, those 5 minutes were a little bit awkward for them, and they just didn't really know what I said, you can ask any question, anything. But it was really cool to see the time or how the conversation grew and flowed from there. I would imagine doing something like this with your family. It's even just sitting across from your sons. Hey, tell me what's going on with you. It might start slow, but it'll pick up.
Yeah, and I think the key or challenge there is, I mean, like coaching a team, like when people would ask me what the most difficult thing was, like, well, number one, they're 18 to 22, so I never knew what they were going to do. But like, I think the complex thing, and even now leading, but even this is in my household with 3 kids, they're all different, so they all need to be talked to differently. They all need something else, in terms of a hobby or whatever that is. They're all different. And that's just one of the challenges of leaders, right? We just got to meet them where they're at. We can't. And I love Greg Tonigal in Indiana Wesleyan. If you hadn't had him on, he should be on. He is phenomenal. And I remember him telling me one time, like, they don't put people in a box. They put them on a linear line. And I love that visual, you know what I mean? Because as coaches or leaders sometimes, and parents, I'm guilty of this, is we think we know what's best for our kids. And so we just kind of push them or navigate them over into that box where, we need to let them kind of discover some of those things on their own. I think we can guide, I think we can direct, but we got to let them fail and screw up, and we got to let them experiment, got to let them succeed, all those different things. And so I think that's that linear line that we're talking about here. And I think that's so powerful and such a different, approach than a lot of people take nowadays.
And it's the same for setting the culture of your program, right? Because if culture is a box, and you're trying to stuff everybody into it, how often are we holding people back or trying to fit guys? Like you nailed it, not meeting them where they're at because of the culture that we're trying to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
What opportunities for learning and growth have you recently found?
Let me talk about maybe in there some others that other than the ones we've talked about. I would tell people, I would go to 2 exercises. I think that daily habit tracker is something I would suggest to people, and even a weekly habit tracker as well. Like, I know one thing in this last year, my drive time has gone down. And so as a result, that podcast have gone down. And I think probably some of that is because I'm doing a podcast of my own. So I need to do a better job of making sure that is a weekly habit. Like, that's just not going to be a daily habit. But if I can just listen to one weekly, podcast, that's 50 a year. And then one thing that I'd like to give your listeners an exercise that I think this one is just so valuable. Our oldest son's 15. I think I did this with him when he was 10. It's called Start, Stop, Keep. And our oldest is introverted. So I remember giving him an index card the first time and writing 3 questions on it. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to keep doing? And I just said, hey, bud, whenever you get a chance, I'd like for you to fill these out. You can take them up to your bedroom, and just bring them down whenever. That's today, tomorrow. And so I'll never forget it. Like, I'll share you the first time we did it. And he was like, hey, you need to start taking me out. The one coach here has a gym more. We were going once a week. He's like, can you take me out a couple more times a week? Great, man. When I went up to talk to him, like, what would that look like? And so we figured something out. And so it was good feedback. The stop one here, I'll get to in a second. And then what do I need to keep doing? I think that was in the month of March. We were halfway through, and we were reading Proverbs one day, one chapter a day to try to get through it. He's like, keep doing that. I'd like to finish that. Great. Awesome. Good feedback. What do I need to stop doing? You need to stop texting when you're in the car driving and I'm in the back. Oh, And so I think when you do this exercise, it's not what you necessarily, it's like what I would tell the players when I'd coach. It's not what you want to hear. It's what you need to hear.
Yeah.
And so this exercise for me, it allows me to open up and be a little bit vulnerable. And it gives my son an opportunity to develop a relationship with me where he has a voice. And so I try to do this with my 3 boys. If you really want to know the truth, do it with your wife, but tell her she can't list 15 things like mine does. I'm now I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing the laundry, but no, it's a really good exercise. And, I try to do it once a month or once a quarter, depending on how things are going, just to kind of stay in touch and see where I'm at. It's like, hey, if I need to start doing this, I'm missing something here. You know what I mean? And where am I missing that I want to make sure that I'm hitting that mark? And then if I need to stop it, it's probably not good. That was an opportunity for me to say, hey, Camden, Dad shouldn't be doing that. He said, well, it was at a stoplight. And I said, no. I shouldn't do that. It's a bad example I'm setting. I have no problem apologizing to my kids.
Coach, you're killing me here.
And so
you're just mentioning a bunch of stuff that I realize I'm just, even with that example right there. I'm pretty sure they would say the same thing. Let me ask you this.
Then the keep one though, one though, I think is that sustainability. And my gosh, I think all of us, my 6-year-old could probably tell you how to be successful but the sustainability is the key. And so when somebody's telling me to keep doing something in their lives, man, I want to keep hammering home that's really, really good. So sorry to cut you off, but I just want to get that last one in there.
You're good. What's your advice on, is that something you would do with the team? But would that be something good to spend 5-10 minutes on with them, and all of the play, like, freshmen through seniors? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. When I became a GM of a small company here after I got out of coaching, I don't know how much you know about the disc, but I'm like a high driver. Okay, so and all of them were like low, quiet, and so the first 3 months, I didn't really do much. And then after 3 months, I just said, hey, at one of our team meetings that I was leading, I said, I'm going to send out, and I think this is for you to take the temperature to decide the best approach. I don't want to sit here and tell you that this might be the approach I took is what's best for you. So I think you need to decide where you're at with your team. But with our team, knowing that they might be a little threatened by this, I decided to make up an anonymous Google survey. And I said, I'm going to shoot these questions to you. If you could get back to me here in a week with your answers, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I'm just trying to grow and be better for you in my role. And so the first time we did it, 10 people, and I want to say like 3 or 4 of them put their name, and I just was able to go around to them personally and thank them. And I was just very aware of what they wrote. And I was just intentional on making those things better. I think the next time I did it, 5 or 6 people. And by the third time I did it, all 10 of them put their name. And then I did it every quarter. And then what I do from there is I had one-on-ones with each of them, and those one-on-ones were other things, but those were embedded into our conversations now, and just letting them know that they had a voice and they were able to share some things with me. And I think that just enabled us to get to trust a little bit quicker, especially if my actions were backing up, the words in terms of the exercise. So yeah, I think if I was a coach again, I think there's a variety of different ways you could do it, whether it's with your leaders, whether it's with your entire program in the off season, for example, catering maybe towards you specifically, maybe towards your coaching staff. I think there's a variety of different ways you could go about it. And I think it's a really healthy exercise for us as coaches to check ourselves on some of those things within our program.
Because we might think that everything is going along the way that we want it to. And that in business or in sports, there are, out of your group of 10 that you're in charge of, there's 2 or 3 that you talk to more, that you have maybe just gravitate towards them. We see the same thing, see the game in the same way or whatever. And I think this is helpful for making sure I know how, guys 9, 10, 11, 12 are doing, that I don't necessarily have all those interactions with. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, I would agree.
You get to meet and talk with a lot of great leaders. So what's one quality that you kind of see that so many of these great leaders have?
Man, I knew the question was coming. It's tough to pick one.
Or what are some qualities?
Yeah, I will say this though. I think servant leadership is the greatest model of leadership that there is. I think it also can be the most dangerous, because going back to what we said earlier, I'm blessed to be married with who I think is the greatest servant leader ever. My wife is like, and no knock on Jesus, I guess, but she wakes up in the morning and serves 4 boys. She goes to school and teaches and serves and comes home and does it. But that's where it can be an issue then if you're not taking care of yourself, is it can be burnout. And so you have to be careful with that in terms of servant leadership. I think, when you're serving others, and this is probably the one thing then that I really see then, is having the ability to build trust. To me, if I were to ask, go back and even talk to 25-year-old Kevin, it's like, what is at the center of the core of all your greatest relationships? And it's trust and love. And so I think as a coach, that's where you miss it. You get so engulfed with the X's and the O's and the tape and the season and all those things. You said it earlier, when you're at your worst is in season, that I think we just forget to hit the mark when it comes to some of those things. And so that's really, really important to me. I think there's some things embedded underneath that. Like I think the ability to be consistent. 25-year-old Kevin was up and down. We won 3 games in a row and I was in a good mood, and we lost 4 in a row and you didn't want to be around me. So I think consistency is a true thing too, that I think the best leaders are. I think authenticity coupled with vulnerability is a big thing. People might be authentic, but a lot of people are lacking this vulnerability. We're judged way too much, and I wish we were able to be a little bit more vulnerable. I think that's a key thing with your players. I mean, being able to stand in front of the locker room and say, "Hey guys, you know what? I'm wrong. I screwed up. This is on me, but I'm also going to fix it." Things like that I think are really good. And I think also embedded in all this too, Matt, is humility. Before you have that humble pie or something bad comes up, if you can have some humility, within your style of leadership, I think that sticks out like a sore thumb. I think people recognize that from day one. You get that title and you stick it on the door and that's gone in about 15, 20 seconds. So I think that's a big one in that. And I think that the key thing is this, and these habits that we're talking about, we didn't touch on this earlier. I think at the end of the day, the great ones control what they can control. You might hear this a lot, but they don't worry about the things that they can't control. They don't spend their time and attention focused on that. If it's that daily exercise routine, if it's their diet, they focus on what that is that they don't control, and they don't pay attention to that coach over there and what he's doing, or that program down the street. So, I know I got a little winded on some of those other ones, but I think they're all embedded in that trust and servant leadership.
How do you get there though? How do you get to that point? Because I would say the majority of coaches, might write down, like if I was going to ask them, what's some qualities of leadership that you've seen? They might write down some of those words that you mentioned. And a lot of coaches go into the season having those in mind, maybe even written on their board, or they want to stick to those, but then somewhere along the way, we forget the main thing, and we get sidetracked, or we start to get distracted by things outside of our control. So coach, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do we stay focused on what we need to and keep those characteristics in play?
I think, for you and I, though, I think some of this is our foundation, right? I think that's really, really important. For me, it's that faith and staying grounded in that. I think the other thing is having a good circle of people, or your own personal board of directors. I think that's huge. Like I've got an accountability partner, that guy knows everything about me, the good, the bad, the ugly, as we would say in our church, everybody has a story and everybody has a struggle. And I'm not here to judge or condemn any of them. I got enough issues on my own, but having somebody to talk to about these things is huge, and not being able to hold back, being vulnerable once again. And even Saturday mornings at 7, I hop on another call, 3 other guys that, we do some faith stuff. We read books. We talk about those things. Those guys keep me grounded. So I think those things are really, really important starting there. I also just think at the end of the day, I think it's experience. I think you have to fail. I think you just have to grow and understand some of these things as they go. I don't think there's really a recipe for that. I think you just have to, experience those things. There's maybe only so many Brad Stevens in the world that just get those opportunities. But you know what I mean? I just think that, I think it's what we talked about earlier. You have to embrace that failure, and how you choose to respond to that then is going to determine what type of person or coach you end up being as a result of that. And being able to, once again, admit when you're wrong. I mean, that's going to help speed. If you love somebody, that's embedded in that, right? Like, and that's going to build trust. Like if you look at that relationship with your wife and with your kids, you apologize to them. You let them know when you're wrong. They know that. Yeah. And so I think that's all in there, if I'm making sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. And you did mention something that there has to be a big enough reason behind what we're doing, for these things to matter. Mm-hmm. If winning is the only thing, a certain amount of wins, legacy, wanting to be remembered in a way that it's all about that. I would say that behind the scenes of that, there's just not a higher purpose. One of the biggest things for me was going from public school, McKinney High School, to private Christian school, Grapevine Faith, and really allowing or having that why be put in front of us every day. Like, why are we doing this, fellas? It's to glorify Christ. It's not, but from that place, then humility comes, servant leadership comes, and all those other characteristics that you talked about. And I also appreciate you sharing about having that accountability. I think that's a part of my life that I might be lacking in, is having a group of guys that board of directors, like you said. I think that's powerful.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com.
You were a coach and you had a program, and then now you're doing this podcasting, but then also talking to businesses. So what's something that makes your program different that you're involved in right now?
Yeah, I think I think it's just it's a good transition of what we just talked about. I think I go back to some of the things that I just failed on or that I didn't do a good job of. Right. And so it's talking to former players and coaches and staying in touch with them and trying to recognize what some of those things are. I was very blessed to have the ability to X and O like crazy. It just came natural to me. It was something at a young age that I was just able to do and see the game and know the game. But what is it? John Gordon says a person's not an X or no, right? And so I think it's just a connection piece. Basketball was just a 24/7, 365 thing. And it's like, if you came into the office, and you'll understand, respect this, because this is back in the day when I had to put one tape in one side and record it on the other. But it's like I would stay up, and like if you went 2 for 11 from the field, I'd stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning getting that ready for you. And you come in the next day, and for 10 minutes I'd show you that and correct that and try to fix it, and you'd leave, and it didn't seem like you were too happy over that time. And I'd be like, to the assistant, what's his problem? Well, the problem was maybe you just broke up with your girlfriend, or you got a D on the test, or something was going on in your life that I just didn't, I didn't pay attention to. And so just the connection piece, I just connect. I think that's huge. I think that's just something that I'm always intentionally trying to do and make it about the other person as much as I can. And we'll get to what we need to get to, when we need to get to it. And I think personally, just the thing that I learned is just taking care of myself better. Like you said, once you get in it, you're in it, man. You're just like, something could happen in the world and you'd look and boom, you're right back into it. You got the blinders on and you're just not paying attention to any of that, to the point where, like you don't even celebrate the wins much. You just win and go to the next one. And when you lose, you're up till 4 a.m, breaking down film and second guessing yourself. And so I think that's the other thing is just, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but just, take care of yourself a little bit better. If I were a basketball coach too, Matt, I think one thing I'd definitely hit on is we teach way too much physical and not enough mental. And I would argue the game is I talked about it all the time. Guys, this is mental. That's mental. But then what did I do to teach or train them on the mental side of things? And so I think that's a big thing as well.
Yeah. Can you go a little deeper on that? Because you're right on the money. So much about the physical habits that it takes to do certain things, but then we'll just glance on things on the mental side. Go a little bit deeper into that. What that looks like.
Well, I think it looks different for every individual again, right? I mean, if we were to have a locker room of 12 guys, everybody, just as simple as like, okay, how do you get ready for a game? Like, how do you get yourself prepped? I mean, I don't know about you, but like when I played, there was 3 guys that needed quiet. There were 3 guys that ran around the locker room like crazy. There were 3 guys that had their headphones on. Everybody's different on how they prepare for those things. So I think, hey, this is how we all are individually. This is how we prepare for the game. And then as you go throughout the course of the season, what are some things that you're experiencing? You go through a 3-4 game stretch, you might be, shooting 20% during that time. I'm shooting 70. Well, we're just at a different point when it comes to that confidence. I mean, and confidence is a crazy thing when you got little or, none of it or a lot of it. Right. And so how do you deal with some of those things? Well, for us, it was, hey, just get back in the gym, just keep at it. Just keep getting more shots up. It'll come. I just think there's other things involved there to the overall mentality to inject more confidence in you rather than just going into the gym and shooting jumpers, even to the point of like a day off, you know what I mean? Or just totally disconnecting and getting away from the game. So I just think there's all those other things that I don't know that I was really aware of, because those weren't those weren't even thought about when I played. You know what I mean? That was that old school mentality probably. And just being able to adapt or adjust, probably another key trait as a leader, to know what some of those things are and cater that to every individual that needs it a certain way.
Like you had said earlier, it does come down to connection, right? Like being connected with your players enough to see where they're struggling, but then to give them the tools, not just get over it or keep pushing through it, but give them the tools to actually do that. How do you help coaches? So you and I are around the same age, so we remember the coaches that we had that were more of that old school. I don't want to know your feelings. I had one. I don't think coaches should be friends with players, but there's a part of friendship and loving and caring about that is beneficial with your players. But I had one coach that was his message. I'm not your friend. You have enough friends. I'm here to teach, to coach you in basketball. So when you set that kind of line there, it seems to be there's a divide or a disconnect. How do you help coaches go from maybe an old school style of thinking to where you want them to be now?
Yeah, and I would say I was probably in that when I started, because of we revert back to how we were coached or what we knew. And so I was like, yeah, if you want a relationship, there's the assistant coach and I'll see you at your wedding type thing, right? And like I got a job to do and need to win games, or there's going to be no food on my table or roof above my head. So I think that goes back to experiences once again, having people in your life to give you perspective to understand like how this is working for you and how it isn't. I wish I would have had somebody more relate to me on some of the mistakes I was making, to see how, when I would come in and maybe go off on them, that catered to my personality. And that might have catered to 2 or 3 of them, but how I was missing the mark. And let's face it though, man, at the end of the day, you've got a difficult task when you stand in front of a room and you've got 12 different people. I mean, that's really, really hard. But if you can go back to connecting them or connecting with them consistently, I think then you're going to have the ability to have the type of conversations that you need to have with them as a team, and the family that you're trying to create, and individually one-on-one. But I think there has to be that trust. I think there has to be that love. If those things are existing, then that enables you to have some of those tougher conversations. That enables you to ask them to do something that maybe they don't want to do. That enables them to get them out of their comfort zone. And so I think it's no different than, desiring to be the type of father or husband that I want to be, and the things that go into that relationship. I think, that really changed for me and probably a lot of young coaches out there when you have your own kid, because now when I'm yelling at a kid, I realize that's somebody's kid. Whereas before, I didn't know what that was or really care about that, right?
Yeah, definitely a different set of lens that you're coaching through, talking through once that happens. When you were saying that, I thought of leadership, and more importantly, choosing the leaders, or what some would say captains on your team, because I think it used to be where the best players were chosen to be captains. But then I don't know if you've noticed this. I have. Some kids just don't want to be leaders. They don't want to be the guy that's in the front. But then I found myself maybe forcing people to be in those positions, or not putting other people there that maybe because of their lack of skill or the level of play. But what's your advice on coaches kind of finding the leaders throughout their team, promoting them, enabling them to lead even more?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll be honest with you. I think it definitely, I can't stand the answer. It depends, but it kind of does depend on the team or the makeup that you have. And I don't want to be redundant, but I think it goes back to the type of relationships that you have with your players and knowing each one of them. Because what you just said, I was thinking of that at the same time. Like, man, I remember one kid specifically making him a captain, and I should have never made him captain. I made him a captain purely based on talent and the fact that he had been around. He was an All-American at our level. He led by example, but he was never going to lead by voice. You know, he carried the culture of the program by just showing up, by working extremely hard, by going to class, by doing all those things. And those are good examples. Don't get me wrong. But what we wanted or expected of him, it wasn't fair to place that on him. So I think you have to have an understanding of who your guys are, you know, and then I think making sure that, I'll tell you two things that I think that great leaders do with their messaging is simplicity and clarity. And simplicity and clarity, and what you might think is simple and clear to you, is it simple and clear to them then? And so I think being very simple in your expectation of that and being very clear in that, and I think that's embedded in your culture, just knowing what they belong to, knowing like what they're going to become, you know, and I think ultimately just knowing too, like, you know, what are they doing that's going to matter and isn't going to matter? And so I would take them down those funnels or those lanes, if you will, or put them in those buckets and just see how they respond to some of those things. Because once again, like you said, you might be asking somebody to do something that they're not capable of doing. And then I do think it's tough sometimes because I mean, we just went through this with one of our oldest. It's like, he wants to do this. As parents, we don't know if this is right. So let's just sit down and go over the pros and cons of this. And hey, I told him, I point blank told him, like, we're going to make this decision and we don't know if it's right or wrong. We have no, if any parent tells you, I think they're just lying to you. At least for me, like, we don't know if this is right or wrong, Camden, but you know, we love you, you know, we believe in you. And, you know, we're behind you. We think you can do it. And if this doesn't work out, then we're going to lean into it and find out what's next. And so I think sometimes that just is going to happen too, instead of scolding or instead of reprimanding or, you know, whatever that might be. So every situation is going to be different, right?
You had mentioned earlier about your 25-year-old self and some things that you might have done back then. What's one thing, or what are some things that you would do differently if you could start over in coaching or in leadership, whatever you're doing?
It's simple for me. I'd serve. I would just serve, and I would serve, and I would serve. It'd be less about me and more about others. I think when you get into that position, it's really easy to get engulfed in you know, in what you know, and you're feeding yourself and your ego and your pride. And so I think I would serve the whole person. I would not just serve the basketball player. And I would just continue to lean into that more and more. But yeah, we could probably go into a whole podcast of all the things that I would do, you know, and for me personally, at that point in my life, you know, faith wasn't number one. So I would definitely, you know, and I love the fact that that's been a part of my path or story, but, that would be an easy one too. And that's probably embedded in why I didn't serve the whole person all the time too. Right. But, that goes hand in hand, but that would be an easy one for me.
So many people get to hear you speak to others. And even on this call, I feel like I've been able to learn about you as a coach, and then as a leader now, a communicator, going in and talking with businesses. But after the speed round, I'll really know, you know, who you are. You ready?
I should say I'm nervous, but I'm going to say I'm excited.
Yeah. Nice. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Peanut butter chocolate.
You're like the first one. That's
wow.
my favorite.
Coach. Right, there we go.
Coach.
Boy.
All right. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
Nice. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
Nice. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Well, that's a good one. I should let my wife answer this. She's a history teacher. I would go somewhere. I'm going to give a general. I would go to my grandparents' generation. I have so much respect for that generation. I don't have my grandparents around anymore, but somewhere around there. So what would that be if they're 80, 90 years ago when they were born? Right around there, somewhere around there. I love that generation.
Your favorite place to travel?
I like Charleston, South Carolina.
You and I are similar ages, so favorite childhood TV show. Let's see if we line up here.
Oh, wow. Man. This isn't a cartoon, huh? This is a show. Favorite childhood TV show. Man, I forget things like a day ago, let alone you're really stretching me.
Yeah.
Favorite childhood TV show.
I mean, I'll just give you. It was Saved by the Bell for me.
I was gonna say Saved by the Bell. Actually, Zach, we had a guy on the team that knew every Saved by the Bell episode. I keep going to Seinfeld because I'm such a Seinfeld guy. Yeah, Saved by the Bell was good, and
I mean, he could pause time, Coach.
What was the one with? What was the one with Michael J. Fox?
Not Growing Pains.
No, Growing Pains was good too, though. Yeah. But that was another one that was good.
What show was that?
Yeah, that was a good one too that I enjoyed. Yeah.
All right, two more.
Yep.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I don't drink coffee. I occasionally have a mocha. I drink hot tea and honey.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
Last one, probably the most important. Godfather or Star Wars, or it could be neither.
Star Wars all the way. And over COVID, my family and I started Friday night movie night. I never watched a Marvel, so my kids are at that age to watch them, and I was shocked. Those are, we've been through them all, and I'm a fan of those two.
They are
Disney
really
Plus
good
is the greatest
movies.
Thing ever. Yeah, they're phenomenal.
Did you go
Disney
in
Plus,
order?
I don't remember technically. I mean, you go on the internet, you can find 8 different ways they tell you is the order.
True.
So yeah, we kind of went in our order, but yeah, very well done. And yeah, Disney Plus, they're geniuses.
Yeah, no doubt. Coach, this was such a blast for me because again, not knowing you really at all, but just watching you on basically Twitter, the 126 characters that you could put out, and then watching some of your episodes. I just, man, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, I'm humbled by just being on here, and yeah, it's great to connect with you. I appreciate it. I wish you nothing but the best with the podcast. Like I said, I listened to a couple now, and you got another fan, and I'd love to stay in touch with you. But thank you so much for having me, and God bless.
Well, before you hop off, tell a little bit about business-wise what you're doing now, how you're helping businesses with culture, and then about your show too, and how guys can connect with you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, so I just do some. It's coaching. I started. September. I was a GM of a local business once I got out of coaching for 2 years, and then just kind of took a leap of faith. Just something my wife and I were feeling and hearing, and a little daunting at first, but man, it's just beyond blessed with the opportunity to do it in a very unique area. We're about 30 minutes away from Canton, Ohio, down here somewhat in Amish country. And so, faith, values, culture is at the forefront of everything we do. And so I don't have to go more than 15, 20 minutes. I've narrowed it down to, I've gotten really busy. And so I'm going to about 5 or 6 places consistently. One more than others right now. So I'm going with some high level leaders or some people within their business, and just a lot of one-on-ones and some small group exercises. Wow. Ultimately, as you could probably figure out, I like the one-on-ones and small group exercises because that's what the locker room was and coaching was. I'll do some speaking when I can. I enjoy doing that. And yeah, the podcast. So the last 3 months, I haven't done anything as we were just kind of transitioning, trying to get this right and organized. And now it is. And so we'll be starting back up here. I got another guest coming in a couple of weeks. And so episode 81 will be there. Everything on the podcast right now, it's Good Stuff with Kevin. You can find it on YouTube. We never did anything on podcast format. I don't, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing and we didn't think it would be anything. And when I was a full-time GM, just kind of doing it for fun, but it's turned into something we really enjoy doing and just, I think, been a blessing to others.
Well, again, thank you so much. And I thought you shared some awesome stuff that coaches and leaders all over can get a lot from. So you just gave me an hour and 15 minutes of your time, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.